What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Prison Audio. My name is Mike, and in this video, we are going to learn the story of Luis Miguel Salinas. So, Luis Miguel Salinas is currently incarcerated in Pleasant Valley State Prison in California. He is serving a life sentence for attempted murder. And yeah, for those of you who do not know, the very first podcast that I ever produced was a podcast called Crash, which told the story of Luis Miguel Salinas. In Pleasant Valley State Prison, they have phones built right into their tablets. So I was actually able to speak to Luis over the phone. And we basically just went through his entire life story, growing up in California, growing up in a gang. And then eventually we spoke about the shooting that happened that got him into prison, and what he's done with his time since he's been in prison. So this is going to be part one of Luis's story. Hopefully you enjoy it. Like I said, this is the very first podcast that I ever produced, ever created. So hopefully you enjoy it. But this is going to be part one, which is going to tell the story of his childhood. Like I said, growing up in Los Angeles, and we're going to go all the way up until the actual crime that got him into prison. So stay tuned until the end. I will come back with some comments, and I will see you guys then.
They weren't trying to arrest you, for the most part. They were trying to just beat the crap out of you and rob you. So they'll come around and be like, "Where's the guns at? Give us the guns. Where's the guns at? We just want the guns."
I don't want beef, man. I just want vibes.
They'll come, they'll search, maybe they'll find a gun, or if they catch somebody and he has a gun on him, they'll just take the gun. They won't even arrest him.
Nah, no need for the snoozing. Big whip outside, I'm cruising. Big stick inside, no
I'm Michael
losing.
Tweedy,
Better watch out for the
and this
snake
is
and
Crash.
Judas says.
My name is Luis Miguel Salinas. I was born on December 3rd, 1985. I'm 37 years old, and I was born and raised in Los Angeles, California. My mother and my father immigrated from Mexico in the late 70s. They settled near downtown Los Angeles. They had 5 kids. I was the middle child.
Luis was a gang member in Los Angeles back in the 90s and early 2000s. Luis grew up around gangs. When he joined a gang at the age of 12, he didn't have to go looking for one. They were already there. The kids in his class at school, the kids he grew up with, the older kids in his neighborhood. LA street gangs were part of Luis's culture. They were all he knew.
12 or maybe right when I turned 13. But I know it was 1998. And I grew up on that street, This is what I saw. These are the guys I saw in elementary school. The other guys, the other kids from that block, we grew up together. We'd be out there. We'd see the gang members out on the street. We'd see them, drinking, kicking in, females, cars, it looked fun. It looked cool, It's what we saw. It's what was there. It's like, it was not out of the ordinary. It was not something that, oh, what's this, It's like this, it's what we grew up seeing. So, yeah, I was young. I was probably the youngest one that got jumped in at that time.
When he joined a gang at the age of 12, he was the youngest member in his gang. He hung out with a lot of older guys, 19, 20-year-olds. They mentored him. They taught him about the streets. They taught him about life. It's called lacing you up. His family was in chaos. His parents were broken up. His sister had taken off. His brother was in the foster care system. Joining a gang gave Luis a sense of acceptance and belonging that his own family couldn't provide for him.
The ones that I kicked it with, the ones I hung out with, that I gravitated towards, were older, a lot older. They were not, none of them were my age. All of them were at least maybe 19, 20, early 20s. There was one guy who had just got out of prison. I want to say he did 13 years for a murder. And he had just got out. And that's who I kind of gravitated towards. That's who kind of put me under his wing. And he gave me a lot of schooling, what we call lacing you up, He told me a lot of stories, told me a lot about prison, told me a lot about everything going on, They looked at me for being so young. They looked at me like, man, like, you have a really good head on your shoulder. Like, you're not just some dumbass little kid, even though I was out there acting a fool. So these older guys, they liked me, they liked me. They liked having me around. They embraced me. And to me, because of the divorce in my family, because of the the way my parents fought and they split up, and you know, the whole thing with the foster care and the counselors and all that stuff. It was just a mess, you know. It was a mess. So we all got split up. My mom took my youngest brothers and sister, and my older sister, she ran off. She was like 16, so she went out on her own. So it was just like me and my brother, and then my brother ends up getting stuck in the system, in the foster care, and so then it's just me by myself. And I'm just, you know, my mother and father, they loved me. They loved all of us. They did everything they could for us. But their fighting amongst themselves is what really messed everything up, because they could not cooperate. They couldn't function with each other. And that right there is what kind of led me to the gang, having that feeling of being accepted, being a part of a family, you know. And now that, you know, looking back on all of that, you know, I've realized it. At the time, I didn't know it. You know, I was a kid, and you know, I knew that I was hurting, but I didn't know that that's why I did what I did. That's why I, you know, even though I was young, I was a big kid. Like literally, when I was like 11, 12, I looked like I was 15, 16. You know, I was a very big kid. I want to say, at that time, I was probably like at least 5'9" and at least 200 pounds. So I was a big kid, man. They looked at me and they're like, you're 12 years old. Like, what the hell? I was like, yeah. They didn't believe me. No, they didn't. I don't want to say that they babied me or anything else, because they thought I was a little kid. Like, no, it was just, I was out there, man. I was out there, and I was doing what everybody else was doing. Like, you know, there was other guys that later down the line that I seen, and I looked at like, man, that's a little ass kid, you know, like tell that guy to get out of here. Like, he shouldn't be out here with us. Like, he shouldn't be hanging around. Because I felt, you know, bad, man. And there was actually a guy who got killed. You know, I want to say he was 13. You know, and I looked at it and I felt really, really bad for that, man. I felt like that guy was just a little kid. Like, he really was like a little kid. Like, he wasn't mature. Like, he didn't really realize what was going on. Like, you know, he was actually on the corner talking on a payphone, and these guys rolled up and they killed him. They shot him and killed him. And it was right after school, so there was a bunch of other school kids. Yeah, man, that one hurt, you know, because I just really, really felt bad for the family, and you know, I just like, man, that was not right. But me, you know, I don't know. I guess I had kind of like an older mentality as well. Like, you know, I was kind of I wasn't just, I don't know. I don't think I was like a dumb kid, you know.
When Luis was 15, he got arrested for the first time. Him and his friends were coming out of a building. Cops pulled up. Luis and his friends ran like they always did. Luis was the only one who got caught. The cops went into the building. A few minutes later, they came out with a gun. Luis was arrested for concealed carry.
In November of the year 2000, I was arrested. It was the first time I got arrested, and they arrested me for carrying a concealed weapon. Even though I didn't have a gun. I didn't have a gun in my possession or anything like that. They saw me and some other guys coming out of a building. They went inside the building, they searched the building, and they came out with a gun. And I was the one that they were able to catch. You know, they caught me and they cuffed me up and they threw me in the car and they arrested me. And you know, I didn't think I was going to get arrested for a gun. So when they tell me, yeah, we got you for the gun, I was like, well, what gun? And they're just like, you know what gun? And so I ended up going to juvenile hall. So I'm in juvenile hall, and I end up getting sentenced to placement. So they send me to this place called Rancho San Antonio, Boys Home of the West.
So Luis ends up in juvenile hall and he's sentenced to a placement at Rancho San Antonio. a boy's home in Chatsworth, California. He really doesn't want to be there. The place has a unit for gang members and a unit for sex offenders, and Luis doesn't want to be associated with the sex offenders. So at first he doesn't try. He doesn't want help, but eventually the counselors get through to him, and he starts doing good. He starts doing good in his schoolwork. His counselors like him. Things are going really well. Things are going so well that at one point Luis is allowed out to attend a public school where he's able to play football.
At Rancho San Antonio, when I first got there, like I said, it was very difficult for me. There was a lot of rules, and at first I didn't want to participate. I didn't want to talk. I didn't want to say nothing. I didn't want to open up. I thought it was all done. I thought it was all bullshit. Like, why am I sitting here talking about my feelings? I want to say I suppressed all those feelings and emotions and everything that I ever felt. I was numb. I was numb to all that stuff, and that was part of the whole gang stuff, right? I mean, because of all the shit that I went through, in the family stuff, and those feelings, those emotions, I put all that stuff, I locked it all down, I didn't let none of that stuff out, and I guess with the gangs, that's what came out of it, like getting into the gang, getting into that stuff. So when I'm at this place, they're telling me to talk about my feelings, they're telling me to open up, they're telling me to express this stuff, to deal with this stuff, to move forward. And at first I'm just like, I'm not having it, I'm not feeling it. I wouldn't participate, and they kept talking to me, and they got through to me. So I think slowly but surely I started talking, started opening up, started talking about growing up, talking about family, talking about the gang, talking about all the things that I did, talking about everything. And then they started doing sessions with my parents. They'd come in and we'd all talk together, or they'll talk one-on-one with me and then talk one-on-one with my parents. So it was pretty intense, man. I started doing good. I started doing good in school. They had a school long study, so I started getting all my credits. And eventually, I was doing the levels. I was doing really good to where they allowed me to go to the outside high school.
So Luis is in high school and things are going well, but he gets in a fight when another boy hits on his girlfriend. The other boy doesn't want to fight back, so he runs to the school security guard. The next day, Luis is arrested for assault.
So I went to Chatsworth High School, and I got into the football program right there. I was playing football. I was doing good in the classes. Things were going good. But I ended up getting this email. Right? So I'm with this girl, and there's this guy that she talks to, and I'm not a jealous guy. I'm not. I don't care if some guy tries to talk to my girl. Like, it doesn't bother me. If she talks back to him, then I'm gonna tell myself, why are you talking to him? Like, you're with me, so why are you entertaining this guy? But this guy's trying to get at her, and he's doing it in front of me. He's doing it in front of my face, and to me, that's disrespectful. That's like saying, fuck you, you ain't nobody, you ain't about nothing, you ain't gonna do nothing, and this is how I feel about it, and I'm gonna do it in your face. And that right there kind of brought back those feelings of, being that gang member, being that guy who's gonna be respected, and who's not gonna be, disrespected in that way. So I tell this guy, look, straight up, you can talk to her, I don't care about none of that, but you're gonna go and start hitting her on her in front of my face, knowing that she's my girlfriend. Now you're disrespecting me, and I told him, I'm giving you a warning, and that's it. You only get one warning. And the guy's like, yeah, I'm sorry about that, man. All right. 2 days later, this guy does it again, man, and it just triggered me, so I didn't hesitate. I told this guy, hey, man, meet me over here, and we pulled him over to the side of one of the buildings, and I told him, you know what I gotta do, right? He straight up disrespected me, and I just punched him, laid him out, and I picked him back up. I said, get up, fight back. And this guy, he's scared. He don't want to fight. I punch him a couple more times. And then there's a couple girls there, and they start yelling, "Leave him alone, leave him alone." And they call the security guard that's on campus. So I see the guy coming towards us. So I pick the guy up and I tell him, "Hey, run, run, run." And I'm running behind him. So this guy runs directly to the office, goes straight. There's a probation officer on site. You know, I'm on probation because I'm in a placement. I'm technically, I'm locked up. I'm not supposed to be out. So I have to report every single day, in the morning, at lunch, and once I leave school, I have to report. I have to tell me, here I am. I just got here. Here I am. I'm leaving. Here I am. Still here. You know, so I have to report. So this guy goes straight over there. He knows my situation, and he tells on me. He's like, "Hey, this guy just assaulted me." So, you know, the next day, I go to school, and of course, I got to report in the morning. So I go in, and they arrest me, and they're like, "You're being arrested for assaulting." So that messed me up, man. You know, I felt very stupid that I allowed myself to get back into that mentality and just throw everything away, you know. So that's what happened, and I ended up going back to juvenile hall, and they ended up sending me to boot camp. So now I'm in boot camp. I do my time. Well, actually, I was in boot camp for a couple of months, and then I was recruited by this guy. His name was Tubman, and he did recruiting for this other camp, that Camp Kilpatrick.
So Luis ends up back in custody, and they send him to boot camp. In boot camp, he does well again. He's playing football again. He gets recruited by Camp Kilpatrick. Camp Kilpatrick's a big deal. They made a movie about it with The Rock in 2003. So again, things are going well for Luis. He makes it through boot camp and gets his freedom back.
They're recruited by this guy. He comes. He actually knew me from the other placement, from that placement in Rancho that I was at, because he was a probation officer. So he would come down and he would talk to us, and he remembered me, you know, and I was a big kid, you know, and I was playing football for Jasper High School. So when he found out that, you know, I was back in custody, he tracked me down, and after a couple months in the boot camp, he comes and he picks me up, and he takes me to Camp Kilpatrick, and I'm playing football for Camp Kilpatrick. You know, I'm doing good there, and I finally get released in December of 2002.
Okay, so Luis is free again. He's back on the streets, and he's really motivated to do well. He's looking into going to college, but a month into his freedom, he gets stopped by crash cops again.
I end up getting arrested in my neighborhood. The crash unit, you know, they get me and they violate me. And when I go to court, they're telling the judge that I'm an active gang member and that there's a war. There's a war going on between my gang and another gang, and there's been all kinds of murders, and, you know, he's just basically telling the judge, like, lock this guy up, don't let him out, you know. Even though they didn't have no evidence against me, they weren't saying, hey, this guy's doing this, this guy's doing that. They weren't saying none of that. All they were saying is, well, he's a gang member, and because he's a gang member, because there's a war going on, then more than likely he's involved in all this stuff. And I'm only out for 1 month. Like, I just barely got out, you know. So they violated me. I end up going back to the halls. I'm in juvenile hall, and I'm sitting in the halls for, they sentenced me. They want me to go to California Youth Authority. So that's a prison for juveniles, pretty much, you know, on a violation. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm going to go to prison now on a violation. Like, how does that even make sense?
So Luis is in juvenile hall, and for the next 6 months, he's just sort of waiting there. And then something happens.
So I'm sitting there for 6 months, waiting, just waiting, like just nothing's going on. I'm just sitting there waiting, and finally they have to review my case because I've been there for 6 months. So they have to review my case. I go back to court, and I guess there's some kind of error in the system, and they don't have my file. And they asked my attorney, they're like, well, what's he here for? And the attorney's like, well, he's just here for a violation. He got out of camp, and they caught him in the neighborhood. He wasn't supposed to be. And the judge is like, well, he's been here 6 months, release him. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh man, I'm getting released. I'm like, wow, I couldn't believe it, I go back and I call my dad. I tell Dad, hurry up, come pick me up. They just let me go. And sure enough, when Dad comes, he picks me up. And this is already towards the end of 2003. So when I get released, in my mind, I'm like, I was about to go to prison. I was about to go to YA. And YA was something ugly. Like, my brother ended up going to YA. I went to go visit my brother. So I knew about YA. I knew the stories. I knew what was happening. Like, it was not the place to be. And as a matter of fact, they shut down the majority of the YAs because of all the stuff going on in those places. Like, just horrible things, man. You were going there and you were either being a victim or you were becoming a horrible monster because of the shit that you had to do to survive. So in my mind, I'm like, I really believed that I was given a second chance. I was like, wow, like, I can't believe this, So that's when all that came about. I told myself, you know what, this is it, man. This is a sign. I'm done. This is it. I don't want nothing to do with this no more. I need to move on with my life. I learned all these things at the ranch, and I need to take advantage of that. Like, I need to put all that into use. So I made the choice. That's when I made the choice. I'm done. And so this is the end of 2003.
So Luis has this huge revelation, and he knows that he has to change his life. And he does. He really does. He gets jumped out of his old gang. He starts going to college. He moves in with his mom out of gang territory. He buys a car. He's really starting to get his life together.
Beginning of 2004. I ended up going to college at the end of 2003. I enrolled for winter, I believe. So I'm in there. I end up doing 2 semesters. The reason why I ended up quitting college was because I got a job at the Whites Golf International, which was a very good job. I was basically getting paid union wages because they had a contract with the city when they were building this resort. So I figured I'll come back to college, So I'm working at this company, doing very good, making good money. I bought my car. I'm living with my mom in Riverside, outside of the gang, outside of the area. I get jumped out. All this happens. I'm doing good. I'm feeling good. I think things are going good. And then my mom decides that she wants to leave California. She wants to move to Texas. And I'm like, hey, that's great. You guys should go to Texas, start over there. But I didn't want to go to Texas. I was like, look, I'm going to wait for this job to open. My mom had a house in Riverside, in a nice neighborhood, quiet neighborhood. It was pretty calm compared to Los Angeles. I was out there living with her, and my mom's boyfriend, he had a job with a company called Whites Golf International. So he got me into that job. I think at the time in 2003 there was a project in Las Vegas. So I was working in Las Vegas. I went out there and we were building a golf course out there, and I stayed out there probably maybe for like 6 months, I want to say, that job lasted. So, once that job was over, came back to Riverside. We were in Riverside for a little while, and then we started another job in La Quinta, California. So when that job was ending, it was in October, November, right? The next job that was coming up, it was going to be for the Dominican Republic. There's going to be a resort, building a golf course. It was going to be basically on the beach, along the beach and stuff. And a lot of those guys were going to go, and they had asked my mom's boyfriend to be one of the supervisors on that job site, but he didn't want to go. He wanted to take his vacation because usually, you know, you're on call, right? Like there's one job and then there might not be no work for a few months, and then there's another job, and so there's not necessarily no vacation because sometimes you could be out of work for a month or two. So that's kind of like your vacation. So at that time, they had like at least 3 or 4 jobs back to back. So, he wanted to take a vacation. He's like, no, I'm good. I'm going to take my vacation for a few months. And then, let me know what's up, what's next, what else is it, what other jobs are there, right? In the past, he had been to Texas. He had been to Texas to do some jobs out there. And my mom had gone with him because sometimes he'll be gone for months and months, So my mom will go out there for a couple of months and then go back home, or there was one time where she actually stayed with them the whole time, So I guess they liked it. It was a very nice. The part of Texas where they moved to was it was like right outside of Fort Worth, Dallas. And it was a very quiet suburb. And really nice house, big house compared to Riverside. I mean, this house is probably like 3 times the size of the house we had in Riverside. They went out there. Well, they had decided, let's move out here, They wanted to move out there. So once that job ended, they put the house up for sale. And at that time, the housing was good. It was a very good time to sell. So it didn't take long to get the house sold. So by November of 2004, they got the house sold and they're ready. They had already found the house in Texas, so everything was in motion. And my mom, she kept telling me to come down to Texas with her, to move out there. That'd be much better. It's a lot calmer. Like, everything was good. But, I didn't want to go at that time because I felt like I wanted to travel. I wanted to go to the Dominican Republic. Like that had me excited, man. Like going to that island, working, getting, I was going to get paid. Everything was going to get paid. We're going to have our housing paid for. We're going to have our food paid for. We're going to have our transportation paid for. All the money that we made was going to be tax-free. I didn't have to pay no taxes because I'm in another country. So it was going to be like a vacation, man. Like, yeah, we were going to work, long hours, but, you're going to be on the beach. So I was definitely very excited for that, man. So I wasn't trying to leave. I was like, no, you know what, I'm going to stay here in Cali, and I'll get a job in the meantime until they're ready. So my mom ends up leaving. They take off. It was in November for sure. And I end up going back to Los Angeles to my dad's place right in the neighborhood, and I'm staying right there for a little bit. And I end up getting a job at this place, the Staples, Smart and Final distribution center. It's in a warehouse. So I'm working, the swing shift, working long hours, so during the day. So, that's kind of keeping me out of the way, keeping me out of trouble, where I'm not really out there like that, because I'm living in the hood. So it's like, I'm gonna see them, I'm gonna bump into them. There's gonna be problems regardless, just because the way I look and the car I'm driving. It's a lot harder to be there because you walk out your door and it's just instant. Like there's gonna be somebody somewhere that's gonna say something to you, or they might not even say nothing to you. They might just see you and start shooting at you. So it is a dangerous place for someone that looks like me, because even though I'm not a gang member, I'm Mexican, I'm young, I'm bald, like, it's like they're gonna look at me and they're gonna think I'm a gang member regardless. Even if I don't carry myself like one or dress like one, it doesn't matter. That's just the way it is in Los Angeles. Any young Mexican that's bald, they're gonna look at.
Kids that grow up in gangs deal with the police a lot. So before we go any farther in the story, I want to talk a little bit about the police that Luis was dealing with as a kid. Cops that patrolled Luis's old neighborhood are from the LAPD's Rampart Division. The Rampart Division is the part of the LAPD that's responsible for Westlake, Echo Park, and Pico Union neighborhoods in Los Angeles, the area where Luis is from. But the cops that deal with gang members in these areas, they're not regular police. They're from a specialized unit inside the Rampart Division called Crash. So anytime Luis had contact with the police as a kid, it was with one of these Crash officers.
I was taught from the gate to run. They always said, don't get caught, man. Do not get caught. As soon as you hear somebody say one time in the neighborhood, they had a siren, right? Like guys would do the siren. I wasn't really good at it, but it was like blurp. They'll do a loud ass siren, so we know the cops are coming. Or they'll click, use their tongue like, well, really loud, and they'll click, or somebody will yell one time, So there was always some type of signal to let us know that they were in the area or they were coming in or whatever. So my first reaction was take off. So I didn't have as many encounters as other guys. There was times that I got caught, because I was either too slow or I got backed into the wrong area. But I knew them streets like the back of my hand, man, because I could run, I could jump a fence, I could go into this building, I could go out this building. Like I knew the ins and outs, man. So a lot of the times I didn't get caught, I took off. So I wouldn't even see who was inside the car. I wouldn't even see what cop it was. I was gone before.
CRASH stands for Community Resources Against Street Hoodlums. From the name, you would think it has something to do with community outreach, but it really didn't.
I think once a year, they used to have a gathering at MacArthur Park, and all the Rampart police officers would be there, and they would try to kind of do like a community thing where people could come and they try to reach out and try to get close to the community or whatever. I remember that. I think that shit was only like once a year. Talk to you as a little kid, right? But that was really nothing because you're a little kid. You don't know what's really going on. So when you're older, like middle school, high school, when you're really living life and involved in all this other stuff, there was no outreach, prevention, or anything like that in our area.
These crash cops, they didn't do any community outreach. The way they acted, it was more like they were a gang themselves.
They were trying to arrest you, for the most part. They were trying to just beat the crap out of you and rob you. So they'll come around and be like, where's the guns at? Here's the guns. Where's the guns at? We just want the guns. And, they'll come, they'll search. Maybe they'll find a gun, or if they catch somebody and he has a gun on him, they'll just take the gun. They won't even arrest him, The same thing with the drugs. They'll come, they'll look for the drugs, they'll take the drugs, and they'll leave, a lot of times. And later on it came out, that they were basically stealing these guns and these drugs, and they were using them, they were planting them, and, all this corrupt shit going on. Well, yeah, they wanted us to kill each other, I mean, that's one of their main tactics was to get one of us, right? They beat the shit out of us, and then they'll throw us in the car, and they'll drive over to whatever neighborhood they know that we're going at it with, and they'll throw us on the street, and they'll honk their horn and bang the siren, make sure people are looking, make sure people see, and then yell out, hey, I got so and so out here, So if, like, let's say you're from 18, they'll say, hey, I got a fake for you. Come get this fake, They're dissing that fool's neighborhood, and they're telling the guys come get him, So that's what they wanted. And then, if stuff got really bad, their answer was come in, beat the shit out of you, and lock you up, whatever. You don't have to have nothing. They just put some shit on you and lock your ass up, you know? Get you off the street, let the shit cool down, let things calm down, you know? And then there was times too where they instigated shit, you know. Later on, like we would come to find out, like these motherfuckers are the ones that instigated this shit between gangs, you know. So they'll go over to one neighborhood and they'll tell them something, and then they'll come over to another neighborhood and they'll tell them something, and they see, you know, these dudes are going at it because of what they heard, you know. So you know they have a lot of dirty tactics, and they want you to know that they're in control, that they run the streets, that they control it, that they're the most powerful gang in LA. You know what I mean? It's about the power. It's about being able to basically they hold us in their hand. You know what I'm talking about? Like they could fuck us over at any minute. They could kill us, and it doesn't matter. You know, they're not gonna. There's no consequence for them, and they did it, man. They did it, and they continue to do it. You know, a lot of these guys, you know, I think that a lot of those guys, they got into that position, they got that job for that reason alone, just to be able to fuck with people. You know, because there's guys that are really about that job, that really want to help, you know, that are really about the community, and you know, they do it for the right reasons. And then there's guys that are there for that, for the power, man. And you know, they do a lot of grimy stuff, man. And that's in everything, man. Same thing with politics. Same thing with any kind of job, man. Anything that has some kind of power over someone else, you know. There's always gonna be some bad apples, you know.
The first time that Luis was picked up by the police, he was 11 years old. Just a warning, the story's pretty graphic.
My very first time that the cops actually got me and beat me up, and they basically got me by like my finger. They had me up against one of the fences, and they had my hands behind my back, and they were like bending my finger back all the way back, you know. So that's just painful. I was a little kid. I was maybe 11, I want to say. And, you know, they knew I was a little kid, so they were just trying to put some fear in me. And they were asking me, where do I live? You know, what am I doing on the street? And all these things. And then they took me home to my parents, to my dad, and they dropped me off. But that was my very, very first time that they grabbed me like that, you know. And then there was another incident too, where there was a few incidents, man, and one incident where one of the officers, they had me in the middle of like this driveway, right? And it's just me by myself because all the other guys took off running, and I was the slowest one, so I got caught. So these fools grabbed me, and they put me on my head. They sprayed my cheek. They kept the legs open, you know, and they start frisking me. And then one cop goes to me, and this dude literally grabs my dick. He grabs it and squeezes it. And he's like, "What's up, fucking Peckerwood?" And, you know, just like dissing me. And in my mind, I'm thinking, like what the fuck? You know, and the dude just like fucking squeezing my shit. And I'm like, what the fuck? I'm tripping off. I'm like, what the hell? And this fool like, you want to be a little gang member, huh? You want to be a gangster? You want to be on these streets? You gonna fucking hang with the big boy? And you know, just talking all the shit. You know, but I'm still a kid, so I think that's why they don't beat the crap out of me, because they see that I'm still a kid. That's one encounter, man. And then there was another encounter where they got me, and they just started beating the crap out of me. They just started fucking me up. They chased me because I was running. And they chased me, and they caught me in the alley. And they just started kicking me and punching me and just beat the shit out of me. They didn't arrest me. They didn't put the cuffs on me. They didn't do shit. They just beat the crap out of me and left me right there in the fucking alley. Let me tell you what exactly happened on January 29th, 2005. There's a shooting on 3rd and Whitmer Street in Los Angeles, California. A man gets shot 2 times, once in his thigh and a second time below the waist near his groin. The victim turned out to be a guy who lived on that street, and who happened to be from the Mara Salvatrucha gang. I never knew who this guy was. I had never seen this guy before. I never ran into him. I never even heard about him. On that night, down the block at the Good Samaritan Hospital, there happened to be some officers dropping off a patient. According to them, they heard a gunshot, so they ran to the middle of the street. They heard a second shot. They looked down the street, and from over 3 long blocks, they say they make out a brown Cadillac going northbound. They jump into their cruisers and start chasing. I never saw the actual shooting occur, but I was on the same street when the shooting happened. You got to understand that in this part of Los Angeles, gang violence is an everyday occurrence. You hear gunshots, you see drive-bys, or even walk-ups. There's murders and robberies. It's a high-crime area. This was a Friday night, early Saturday morning. There's a very active war going on between the gang I was from and the well-known 18th Street gang. There was a constant back and forth. That same week of this incident, on that very street, in broad daylight, in the middle of the afternoon, I was dropping off a friend, taking her home. I'm going westbound on 3rd Street, making a left on Wimber Street. There were some guys on that corner hanging out. The moment I'm making the turn, going into Whitmer, I see a car with several bald heads. The driver is staring right at me as I'm going in. I immediately sense danger. Knowing it's about to go down, I see everything in slow motion. I recognize the gesture of the driver grabbing a gun and starting to lean out the window. He sticks the gun right in my face and starts pulling the trigger. Somehow, I'm alert enough to move my head back as he's extending the gun towards me and lean to the passenger side with my right arm grabbing my friend's face and pushing it back so she doesn't get shot. I hear the loud blast of the gun. I feel the burn across my face of the bullet whizzing right by. I hit the gas all at the same time to speed through. The other car busts a bitch and gets right behind me and is still shooting at me. Farther down the block, there are more guys, and they start shooting at the car, shooting at me. This whole scene could not have lasted more than a minute or two, but it felt like eternity. Somehow, my brains were not blown out that day. So a few nights later, on Friday night, I'm sure the guys on the block were already on high alert because of the constant gunplay. I'm parked in the driveway in front of a building. I'm sitting in the car with a female friend. We are both drinking Coronas and listening to the car stereo, just talking. We're both buzzing it. We're attracted to each other, so I was trying to enjoy the night. I know it was well after 2 a.m. because we couldn't buy any more alcohol. We hear a gunshot. We know it's close. My friend is scared. I tell her to run inside the building. We hear a second shot as she's opening the door and running into the building. I'm trying to keep watch and see where the shots are coming from so they don't start shooting at us. I saw a car speeding towards my direction, going northbound on Wimmer Street. I automatically duck down and hide behind my car. My first thought is the dudes from 18 came in again. I get back in my car. I notice a guy I knew from the neighborhood running up the street. He's getting close and recognizes my car. He jumps in. He starts saying, "Get me out of here. Come on, get me out of here." I kind of froze up. In my mind, I'm thinking, why did he jump in my car? I wanted to just say, get the fuck out of my car. Go inside the building. But this guy was older than me, and I'm not from the hood, so I pretty much felt like I have no choice. To avoid any issues, I just pull out and start driving northbound. He tells me to drop him off in front of Belmont High School at a friend's. At this point, I'm not in a big rush. I don't speed off like crazy. I thought in my head I'm just going to drive up the street, drop this fool off, and go home. So I drive up a few blocks. I'm making a left turn on 2nd Street. There's a 4-way intersection. So on my right side, coming up the hill, I see a cop car. I make my turn, and the officer follows behind me. I pull over to the side, expecting Hector to get out. He's about to get out, and cops shine the light on us. He closes the door and says, "Let's get the fuck out of here." Now my adrenaline starts pumping. I go into panic mode. I just know it's going to be all bad for me if the cops get us. I never saw Hector with a gun, and he never said he just shot anyone. I only assumed someone came into the block and shot at the guys. I assumed Hector just wanted to shake the spot. I'm pretty much drunk, buzzing real good, so I'm not thinking straight. I just want to get away. I don't want to get caught by cops and beat up, arrested, possibly killed. I know it's going to be all bad, period. We go on a high-speed pursuit for a few blocks. I'm going towards Temple Street so I can jump on the freeway. I get to Temple Street and Union Avenue. I try to get on the entrance, but I'm going too fast, and I hit the embankment that divides the exit and the entrance. My car spins, and I end up doing a 180. I make a right down Temple and try to make a left on Glendale Boulevard, but I'm going way too fast. I end up jumping onto the sidewalk and losing control, slamming into a light post that's right before the bridge. I get out of the car with my hands up, yelling, "Don't shoot, don't shoot." My only thought is these cops are going to kill me. I keep one hand in the air, and with the other, I grab my shirt from the neck and pull off my shirt and jacket. I throw it on the ground and start slowly turning in a circle, yelling, "Don't shoot." Officers immediately swarm me. I grab the chain link fence so I wouldn't hit the ground and crack my head open. Cops are punching and kicking me, hitting my head so I can let go. I'm just yelling, "Calm down, calm down." You know, they're yelling at me and telling me to get down, and I'm just saying, "Man, calm down," you know, and they just rush me. And as soon as they run towards me, I grab the fence, because the fence is right there to these little tennis courts. So I grab the fence and I hold on to it so I don't fall and, you know, crack my head open. And when I'm grabbing the fence, they're just hitting me. They're just hitting me, punching me, and then hitting my hand, trying to pull me off the fence, trying to slam me on the ground. And I'm just telling them to calm down. They finally get me off my hand off the fence and slam me on the ground, and they end up cuffing me, and they end up hog tying me. They tie my legs to my hands. They pick me up and they throw me in the back of the squad car. So while I'm in the back of the squad car, I could see the officers approach my car, and they go to the passenger side, and they grab Hector, and they rip him through the window. Like, they grabbed him and they just grabbed him and pulled him out through the window, and they slammed him up against the floor, and he's up against the fence right there, and then I just see them all, that big old pile, just pile on him, just punching, kicking, you know. And I see the crowd kind of open up a little bit, and I see these other two officers start walking towards me, and they get into the car. And when they get into the car, they take me up the street, which wasn't very far. It was on a Third, right there, 3rd and Wimmer Street. They take me right up there, and as soon as I get there, I see the ambulance. I see that the doors are closed. I see one officer standing outside. You know, the cops, they pull over, they come around, they open up the door, they tell me to get out. And like I said, I'm hogtied, so I kind of have to. I'm like hunched over, and I managed to get out, and I was able to stand up, but I'm hunched over, so I have to take some hops, right? Because I can't stand up all the way. I can't walk, so I have to take some hops. So I take 2 little hops. I hear the officer yell out, "It's too late. Get him out of here." And right away, they tell me to get back in the car, and I get right back into the car.
Okay, sorry to cut in like this, but I want to go back over the Rampart scandal and just give a little bit more context to the type of police that were arresting Luis that night. Okay, so in the late 90s, the LAPD was involved in the scandal. At the center of the scandal was this guy named Rafael Perez. So Perez is a former LAPD officer who was arrested for stealing cocaine from a police evidence room in 1998. Perez's arrest opened up a Pandora's box of corruption and police misconduct that ultimately led to the overturning of nearly 100 criminal convictions and millions of dollars in settlements. So Perez's arrest was just basically the tip of the iceberg. The investigations that followed, they opened up a web of criminal activity that involved a number of LAPD officers. Perez himself implicated 70 officers in criminal or administrative wrongdoing and identified 91 problematic cases involving bad shootings, fabricating evidence, and all kinds of other forms of misconduct. Okay, so let's talk about some specific things that Perez has been found guilty of doing. There's a case of Xavier Obando. When Xavier was 19 years old, he was a gang member. He was dealing with Perez. Perez and his partner at the time, Nino Duran, they corner him, get him alone, and they end up shooting him and leaving him paralyzed. What they do then is they plant the gun on him, they hide the gun on him, he gets arrested, and he was sentenced to 23 years in prison based on the officer's testimony. Thankfully, he was later exonerated. But you know, these are the type of cops that Luis was dealing with.
After that happens, after I get back in the car, they take me to Rampart Station, right? So the Rampart Station is literally like a block away. They took me to the detective station. Back then, you had the Rampart Station, which was over by Rampart and Alvarado, right off Temple, and then you had the detective station, which was right there on Union, and pretty much 6th and Union right there. So at that time, they took me to that station, and they threw me in a room, and I'm in there. I don't know for how long, and then they finally come and they get me and they take me to the restroom. They take the cuffs off and they do a gunshot residue test kit on my hands. So they swab my hands, and then they put me back into that cell, and I'm handcuffed to this bench. These officers come over and they start asking me, "Where's the gun? We want the gun." And I'm like, "I don't know what you're talking about. You know, what gun? What are you talking about?" And we just want the gun, man. If somebody finds that gun, if somebody gets hurt, that's on you, and this and this and that. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about, man. Like, I had no clue. You know, I'm telling you, this whole entire time, my thought was somebody came in, because that's what happens all the time, man, all the time. People come in and start shooting. So in my mind, that's exactly what happened. So when these guys are asking me about a gun, I'm like, I don't got a gun. I mean, you got my car, you can search my car, all that. I don't have a gun. I never had a gun, you know. So they're like, all right, and they walk away. And I'm sitting there for another, I don't know for how long. And then I could hear them talking. And they're talking about pretty much what happened. And they're like, yeah, we're still looking for the gun. We haven't found the gun. So after a little while, that's when they end up taking me down to the glass house, and I get processed, you know, and I'm there. And then finally, I end up going to court. And when I go to court, that's when I kind of find out what's really happening, you know, because that's when the lawyer tells me, hey, well, look, they're saying they're charging you with an attempted murder. You know, it was a gang-related shooting, and the guy's in the hospital and all this and that. And I'm just tripping out, like, what the fuck, you know? And Hector, I hadn't seen him since they got us, right? The last time I saw him was when I got out the car, and they dragged him out the car and they were beating him. That's the last time I seen him. I didn't see him again until that day we were in court. We were going to court because they put us in a holding tank waiting for court. So when they put us in a holding tank, he's the first one they call. You know, they call his name, and I automatically get up because I figure, okay, well, we're both here together. We're both going to go to the court at the same time, but the officer's like, no, it's just him. So I go back and sit down, and Hector leaves. And I'm the very, very last one to get called. So I'm there all day long, and, you know, I'm wondering, like, what happened, you know? So finally it's my turn, and when I go out to court, the first thing they're saying is they're talking about murder. So we're charging you with murder. I'm like, what the hell, murder? So now I'm really like stressed out, thinking, what? Right away the public defender is like, hold on, Where's the death certificate? I don't see no death certificate. How are you gonna charge my client with a murder? And the DA's like, well, it says here murder, and then the lawyer's like, well, double check. So they send me back into the holding tank, and then I come back like maybe 10, 15 minutes later, and then the DA's like, oh, we're gonna charge him with an attempted murder. It's not a murder. So, I'm thinking in my head like, fuck, man, it's all bad. Like, they're getting me for this, and I don't even know what the hell happened. All I know is that there was a shooting, and like I said, I thought these dudes came in and shot. So I don't know who got shot. I don't know where they got shot. I don't know none of that stuff. So in my mind, I'm just thinking like, fuck, man, what the hell? But at the same time, I'm like, well, I don't got nothing, and I know that I'm innocent, so they're gonna have to let me out, and that's what I'm thinking. And so right after that court date, right after the court, they take me downstairs to the tank, to the holding tank, and that's when I see Hector. And Hector's like, what happened? And I was like, well, they arraigned me. They got me for attempted murder. And I asked him, well, what happened to you? Where did you go? And he's like, I came right back here. They just brought me straight back to this tank, and I've been sitting here this whole time. I never saw the judge or nothing. And then I'm like, you know what? They didn't even mention you. They didn't say nothing about you. So I'm pretty sure they're gonna let you go. I'm the one that's gonna go to jail, And he's like, no, I don't think so, man. I don't think so. Sure enough, they had told him, it's a DA reject, and he got released. He got out, and I stayed, and that's when I went to
All right,
when I
guys, that
went
is going to
straight to
be
the
it for
county,
this one. That was the
and that's
story of
when I
Luis
went through
Miguel
the whole
Salinas, and he is
process
currently incarcerated in
and all
Pleasant
that.
Valley State
I
Prison
wasn't mad at
in
him too.
California. He is
I
serving a
wasn't
life sentence
looking at
for
him like,
attempted
oh
murder.
fuck this dude,
And
no,
what do you guys
because
think?
I
Leave a
didn't know
comment
what the
below.
fuck
Let
was
me know what
going
you
on.
think of this
All I knew
case.
was
And if you are
in
watching
my
this far
mind, I'm
into the
like, these
video, I want to say
motherfucking
thank
cops
you. I
are
appreciate
fucking
you
us
for
over.
watching. If you like this type of
That's
content and you
all
want
I
to help the
have right
channel
there.
grow, the best way you can do
And
that is by liking this video,
I'm
by
the one that's
commenting on
gonna
the
get
video, and
shit
by
in this
subscribing
case
to the
because that's
channel.
what happened.
And if you're so inclined,
That's
please share
exactly
this
what
on social
happened,
media,
man.
share it with
So
your friends. Every little bit helps, and I
it's just
definitely appreciate all of that.
another
And I do have
situation,
some other
And
prison-related
and
YouTube
I'm
channels,
just
so if you are
hoping
interested in
that
prison
all the truth
content, I will
comes
leave a
out
link below
because
for
I
those.
know I'm
Definitely
innocent.
check out
I
those
know I
channels
didn't
as
do it.
well. But
I
yeah, I'm
know that
curious to hear your
nobody can
thoughts
sit
on
there
the
and
Luis
say,
Miguel
"Hey, I
Salinas
saw
case,
him
whether or
shoot
not
him."
you guys think
Nobody
that
could
he
do
is
that
in
because
fact
it wasn't
innocent
me.
of these attempted
So
murder charges.
I still had some
Yeah, I'm
faith.
curious to know
I
whether or
still
not you believe
believed
his story.
in
Personally, I've talked to
pretty
Luis
much
quite a
justice.
bit over the
That hey, if
phone, and
I'm innocent
everything
and
that
I
he
got nothing
says
to worry
always
about,
adds
right?
up.
There's a
I've never heard
Mexican
him
saying that says
change or
el
alter
que
his
el
story
que
in any
nada
way, so
debe,
I do actually
nada
believe
teme.
his
So if you
the way
don't
he
owe
describes
nothing,
what happened in this
you
case.
don't
But
fear nothing, right?
let me know
So
what you guys think. Do you believe him
you
or
ain't got to
not? Leave
worry
a comment
about it,
below.
right?
Let me
You're
know, and I
innocent,
will see you guys
so
on the
you don't need
next
to
one.
stress on it. The truth's gonna come out, but that's not the way it works in LA County, and in lots of other counties. We're guilty until we are proven innocent beyond a reasonable doubt. That's the way it goes, not the opposite. Not, oh, you're innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. No, we're guilty off the bat, and we have to work hard as hell to prove our innocence. And even those that prove their innocence, they still get fucked over. In my mind, I'm like, I won't be here long. I'll get out. I'll be out soon. That's what I really believed. And the more courts I went to, the more I seen like there's no way, man. Like these guys, they don't give a fuck. They don't care about the truth. They just want me to be locked up. That's it, man. That's all they care about. So I started kind of losing hope. Started kind of like, man. And I had my lawyer. I felt like this dude was a straight truck. Like he didn't give a fuck about my case, man. And at the very beginning, he didn't even want me to do a lineup. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't want me to do a lineup? Like, I know the dude's not gonna because it's not me. Like, he's never seen me before. I've never seen him, so I'm not worried about none of that. I want to do a lineup and I want to prove that I'm innocent. And the lawyer's like, I don't recommend it and this and this. I was like, man, I don't care what you're saying, man. I want to do a lineup because I know for a fact that he's not gonna put me out. It's not me. So finally, we get the lineup, and sure enough, the dude is not pulling me out. But I just felt like this lawyer didn't give a fuck, and he wasn't trying to do nothing for me. So, and it's just slowly but surely, I began to lose hope. I began to be like, you know what, this is it. And everybody around me is telling me, hey, you're gonna lose, you're gonna go to prison, you're gonna get life, and this and that. Everybody's telling me that. Everybody's saying that. Like, don't even just know that you're not gonna go home, And I'll get mad. I'm like, what you mean, man? Don't bring me that bad energy, man. He's like, they're like, you just gotta face the truth, man. They don't give a fuck. You're gonna get locked up, fool. Like, that's what it is. So, emotionally, I'm going through it, man. I'm like, fuck, I'm not even supposed to be here. There's no way for me to bail out. There was like a $2,800,000 bail. Like, it was just outrageous. Like, what the hell? It's not even a murder. It's an attempted murder, and it wasn't even a serious, like a really serious life-threatening injury, because the dude right away, he recovered. Like, he was going to court, everything. So I didn't understand, like, how the hell, they're gonna hit me with this much. But that's what it was, My lawyer didn't try to argue that or nothing. So I'm stuck. I got no way out.
Look, tell a man no trouble. I don't want beef, man. I just want vibes. Big man like me, no need for the telephone hype. I got 2 weeks getting online.
Alright, so I remember, it was a Friday, and that day I didn't work. I just got paid. So my whole plan for that day was to go get my check cash, go get my hair cut, wash my car, have lunch, and then come home. And I was looking for a car because at the time I had this brown Cadillac, 1984 Cadillac Eldorado, and that car was a straight gas guzzler, So I really wanted another car that I would save money on, and also too that car was already kind of burned, like it was it was just that gangster looking car. So I wanted to get rid of it already. So I remember, my sister had told me that she wanted to go to the mall and stuff, and so I told her, well, she would come with me to look for a car. So we ended up going down to the Glendale, and in Glendale there's a bunch of car dealerships, and there's a big mall called the Glendale Galleria. So we're out there, and we're going to all different spots, and I finally come to this one spot, and I find this little Honda that I liked. It was like a 96, 97 little 2-door Civic. So, it was already kind of late. It was already, they were pretty much already going to be closing. So, I tell the guy right there, I said, okay, this is the car I want. I'll come back on Monday and I'll sign the paperwork and bring a down payment and do all that, So right after that, we end up going to the mall, Glendale Galleria, and it's me, my sister, and she has three little kids. My little nephew, I think the oldest was like 6 or 7 at the time, and then like a 4-year-old and a little 2-year-old. So we're walking around the mall and stuff, going to different stores like JCPenney, Macy's, stuff like that. And I get a call. Betty calls me up and she's like, "What's up, man? What are you doing? What's going on?" And I tell her that, I'm right here at the mall with my sister. We're shopping and stuff. And she's like, "Stop by, come through, I want to kick it with you." And I was like, "Nah, I can't, I got to go to work in the morning," because that was the whole thing. Like, I had to go. Usually I didn't work on Saturdays, but that weekend we had to do overtime. We had to come in on Saturday, and we had to come in early. My shift, my usual shift was the swing shift, so I would start at 4 o'clock, and my shift would be over by midnight. But pretty much every night there was always overtime, so I would usually stay for at least 2 hours. I wouldn't get home. I wouldn't get off until like 2 a.m. I wouldn't get home till like 2:30. So, I already knew, like, man, I have to get up early. I'm not trying to go out. I'm not trying to do nothing. I'm just trying to go home and go to sleep, That was the plan, So she calls me, she tells me this, and I'm telling her, no, I'm good. And I hung up, and then we continue shopping and stuff. And then she calls me again. She's telling me, come on, man, come through. I want to kick it, And I'm like, nah, I'm good, And by the time we're leaving the mall, like, it's already late. It's already probably like, it was probably like 9 o'clock, maybe close to 10 o'clock. And she calls me again. And, she's blowing me up, man. She's on me. She wants me to come through, So, I know that I should have just stayed home because that was the plan. I would just go home, get up early, go to work. But, she kept blowing. Even after I told her no, on the drive home, I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, man, she really wants to kick it, so, I'm definitely gonna have a good time, So at the end by the time we get home, I'm already like, man, you know what, fuck it, I'm gonna go, man, I'm gonna go kick it with her and see what's up, So as soon as we get off the car, I tell my sister, hey, I'm gone, I'm gonna go kick it. And she's like, nah, don't go, man. Just go home, go to sleep, And I was like, nah, I'll be back. I'm just gonna go and kick it, and I'll be back, So I jumped in my car and I go down there, and I meet up with her, And we start kicking it with her. But at the end of the day, I was like, man, I should have just stuck to my plan. I should have followed my gut instinct, which was not to go out that night. That's what got me caught up. That's the reason why I was there in the first place. So it's just the power of the female, man. Like, she just kept blowing me up. So I was like, man.